larger because it's very small on the screen.
Now, do I do that?
I think it might be each person has to do it. I just don't know
you
where.
have to do it on your own screen. Yeah, make it full screen or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'll let you know what's on here, and as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lesson. If you have a question, I'm going to just have you hold on to it for now, and once I get through the lesson, which should probably take about 15 or 20 minutes, I would think, then we will. I'll invite any questions you might have, and you can also email me at any point, and I check my email pretty frequently. So in any case, so I want to get started here. So I want to start with the introduction, right? So the introduction. Now, a lot of the stuff is going to be repetitious because you've done it all before. You should have written an essay in grade 9 and an essay in grade 10, or hopefully 2 in grade 10 if everything is going properly. If you haven't, then you'll get a sense of it. There's also some, again, check the Google Classroom. There's something called, under assignments, there's something called Scholl essay and something called Fowler essay. The Fowles essay is a level 4 grade 10 essay. The Scholl essay is a level 4 grade 11 essay. It's on Frankenstein, but the structure is the same. So use those as a guide. There's also a rubric there. I think I uploaded a rubric. You can let me know if I did or not. I'll double check it anyways before I go. Anyway, so with the introduction, you got to start with a hook, and that hook should either be a quotation from someone about the subject, or a statement that you make about the subject, right? So the subject's ambition or murder or whatever the topic is, then you would make that statement, right? So if you use a quotation, if you can attribute it to somebody, if it tells you who it is, say, so and so, I don't know, Tchaikovsky once said, and then that sort of thing, or give the quotation and then after I just bracket with who said it, right? The second sentence is a discussion of that hook. You can't just have the hook and then go right into the essay proper. So you have to discuss what the hook means. So tell me a little bit about what exactly that means, so that when you get to the next part, we can make that connection. So there's the hook, the discussion of the hook, and then you're going to introduce the work. So in Macbeth by William Shakespeare, or something like to that effect, right? And then you're going to discuss that topic. And ambition is a major subject of the play, or something like that. So introduce the work, but connect it to the hook, right? Once you've done that, once you've introduced the work and connected to the hook, then you work your way into the body of the introduction. Okay, so you give a little bit of the background of the play. Now, it's very important. You don't need to retell the whole play. You just give me enough of the background of the play that that gives you a sense of what your thesis is going to prove. Right, so discuss the subject of ambition in Scotland during the time of Macbeth, or something to that effect. Right, a little bit of background from the play, and then your thesis statement, which is what is the thing you're going to prove. Right, and so the topics I gave you are all essentially thesis statements. And once you've just changed that into your own words and tell me the 3 examples, the 3 arguments you're going to use. So down there. Right, so you got your thesis statement. Your thesis statement should be the very last sentence of the introduction, and it should list what's the subject of the 3 body paragraphs in that one sentence. Okay, a common mistake people make is when they give the background, they get into the discussion of the thesis. They start talking about the 3 examples they're going to use. Don't do that. Discuss it in broader terms. The notion of courage or manhood or whatever or betrayal or whatever in Macbeth, but then the specific thing you're going to prove with its 3 points. Okay, so your MLA format puts your title page. You usually start your essay about maybe a third of the way down the page, right? And so if you start your essay about a third of the way down the page, your introduction should take up that page. It should be long enough. It should be around 200 words, I would think. Okay, so it's long enough to give me to lead me to your thesis, right? So quite often when this essay is portrayed, right, when we see it, the introduction is usually, if you've seen this diagram, the introduction is usually an upside down triangle, right? Right? A broad discussion of the subject in the hook, the specific point you're going to make in the end at the very end. So that last sentence.
You have to put the camera up.
And now, you want to fight?
Sorry.
You sound like you want to fight.
No, I just wanted to tell you because you were saying something and we can't see.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. Keep doing that because I'm not very good with this stuff. So
that's fine.
If you can't see what I'm doing or what I'm, feel free and tell me. What's that?
It's quite all right. We could do this.
You right? Okay. All right. So now the next thing is your body paragraphs. So if you think of each body paragraph is essentially a 5-part paragraph. Right. So if you've mastered the 5-part paragraph, you're halfway done. Right? So you start with your topic sentence. Topic sentence, again, really performs 2 functions, right? Or 3 functions, actually. So in a 5-part paragraph, you introduce the work in the topic sentence. You don't need to do that. So you don't need to introduce the work again, but you have to do everything else, right? You need a transition, right? What is the topic of that paragraph? So which of the arguments, right? So this should correspond with the first thing you mention in your thesis statement. Should be the first thing you discuss, the first body paragraph, right? So your topic sentence transitions, list your topic, and the 3 points you plan to make, right? You list those 3 points. Now this should just be 1 sentence, ideally, at very most 2 sentences. Right, so you don't need 4 or 5 sentences to do this, right? Your transition should be part of that sentence, and make it pretty easy. It should be a transitional phrase, right? So in the body of a paragraph, you have transition words, but if you're doing transitions between paragraphs, you need a transitional phrase, right? So say like, for example, right? Instead of just saying next, right? Instead of just saying next, comma, you would say another example, or Macbeth also, right?
Can you bring it down,
in
please?
addition to Macbeth, Lady Macbeth. Yeah, something like that. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you put your transition word in that sentence in a way that leads you to the next idea without just setting it off by itself, right? So the transition should be a phrase, either a phrase like, in addition to Macbeth, Lady Macbeth also does this, or besides Macbeth's case, Banquo also, right? Something to that effect. So try to get a smoother transition. Right, so probably in your grade 10 essay, you just had to make sure there's a transition there. You want to try and put that transition into your topic sentence. Right, so your topic sentence transitions, states the topic for that paragraph, and gives you 3 points. Right. So once you've done your topic sentence, go back up here. Right. Then you go back. It's the same idea as the paragraph. Right. So you do the exact same thing. Right. It's point, evidence, analysis, point, evidence, analysis, point, evidence, analysis, concluding sentence. right? Now, a couple things that really are important with this. The point has to make a separate point, right? So make sure that you don't use your point statement to capture your quotation. You need to make a point because that's the thing that you're using to prove your thesis. So make a point. Your evidence should be a direct quotation, right? So if you've got 3 direct quotations per body paragraph, your essay will have 9 quotations, right? So point, quotation, analysis, right? And your analysis performs 2 functions. And I've written a fairly good example of it in that essay writing tip sheet on Google Classroom. But the analysis is very important. And this is what separates the grade 10 essay from the grade 11 essay, right? This is where I can tell you really understand the business of essay writing, right? So your analysis should prove how the quotation proves the point. So how the quotation proves the point. So how does this prove that? So if you haven't made a full statement here, then your analysis can't do its job. If you want to give the quotation context, okay, where you found the quotation or whatever, use that when you introduce it, right? Remember, when you have to incorporate quotations into the body paragraph, right? Remember, you're incorporating quotations. Sorry, when you're incorporating quotations into a longer sentence, right? You can use the context of the statement or where it happens in the play or what's going on at that moment as a way of leading into your quotation, right? When they enter, once they reach Dunsinane, Malcolm tells the soldiers to their leafy screens throw down. You see what I mean? So they've come to Dunsinane, and then what he says is in context, and that's a good way of incorporating a quotation into a longer sentence, right? So point, evidence, quotation, incorporating a longer sentence, analysis. Now, your analysis should tell you 2 things. One, how the quotation proves the point, and again, how the point helps to prove your thesis. Right? So there's 2 jobs in the analysis. So probably your analysis in your grade 10, as long as you, I should move over here. Here we go. Sorry. As long as you had a quotation, and as long as your analysis proved your point, you're kind of good to go. Here, I want your analysis. So how does your quotation prove your point, and how does that point help to develop your thesis? So you're going to come back to order or whatever, you're going to come back to that in every point you make. That is probably the biggest single separator, right? Those are the 2 things I just talked about, the 2 biggest separators of the grade 10 and the grade 11 essay. How fluid are your transitions between your paragraphs? Right? And how good is your analysis, right? Also keep in mind, right? Because now here's where you can use a transition word, right? First, in addition, moreover, besides, however, whatever you need, right? Whatever you need there. Okay, so you need your quotation proves a point. You need transition, comma, right? The point you make, evidence analysis. Okay, we good so far?
It's lagging for a lot of people.
I don't know. I'm looking at seeing a lot of technical glitches in the chat there.
Yeah, like you can
Is it?
hear yourself say
Okay, well, I'm hopefully it records. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can sometimes hear you.
It's just like sometimes your voice stops, like you can't hear it anymore, and then it just speeds up really fast. And then
And sometimes the audio doesn't line up with the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's obviously not like the best program ever. I'm recording this, so if I can figure out how to do it, I will post it to the it'll be in somewhere in, I guess, in your Brightspace. There'll be a copy of it. I'll see also if I can share it to YouTube, and failing that, I will actually make a whole new video and just post it to YouTube. So we'll at least have that. Anyway, you've got to get it one way or another. So does anybody have? Yeah, let's start there. Does anybody have any questions about the essay right now, as far as it goes. Right, just so you understand the introduction and the body paragraphs. Is it making sense?
So wait, each like point you have, you need a quotation, and then so each like point is basically like a
Yep.
three is basically like a 5-part paragraph then.
Yeah, exactly. Each paragraph is like a 5-part paragraph, right? So you'll have 3 points at each of the quotation. So yeah, so you'll have 9 quotations total.
So you
right?
said the quotation has to be incorporated into a longer sentence? Incorporated.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's like I said. So just like give some context, right? Say so. When Macbeth is speaking to, or sorry, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth decide that to be that quotation mark, to be thus is nothing but to be safely thus, quotation mark, right? So just put the give it, so just give it, put it in a longer sentence that sort of gives you a context of where you find the quote or something like that, right? So
Okay.
yeah, it has to be in a longer sentence. Don't just give me the quotation as its own sentence. Okay. So, and then finally you have a concluding sentence.
Someone
Concluding
wrote
sentence.
a thing.
Now you have a couple of options here. Yeah, go ahead.
It says,
You
does
have a
the
question,
body
another question?
paragraph also need a connecting to a broader idea at the end, like the vice?
Yeah. So you're talking about your concluding sentence, or what do you?
Someone else wrote that.
Well, let's see. So, does the body paragraph also need a connecting to a broader idea at the end, like the essay paragraph? No. You're going to do that at the end of the essay.
My thing stopped working.
I'm just going to go ahead and right. So the concluding sentence again has a number of functions. And it's a pretty long thing. You don't go easy on this part, because so in a paragraph. So the overall structure of an essay is your introduction. You tell me what you're going to tell me. In the body, you tell me, and in the conclusion, you tell me what you just told me. Right? It's the same thing with each paragraph. Topic sentence tells me what you're going to tell me. The body tells me what you're going to tells me, and then the concluding sentence tells me what you just told me. Right? So in this case, you restate argument. Right? So whatever the topic the topic you just discussed in the topic sentence, you're going to go back to it. You're going to restate it, looking back. So as the audience can see, right? So so you're writing this, restating the argument as if you've just proven it, right? And so the audience can see that this is true.
Can't see all what you wrote.
And then restate your 3 points.
We can't see that.
Okay, I'll move it down. Okay, can you see now?
Yep.
So restate your argument looking back. So as if you've just proven it. Restate the 3 points you just made also. Right? So it's really the mirror image of your topic sentence. So it has a function to its full advantage. Now, if you're really good, now you don't have to do this, and you won't be docked if you don't. But if you want to get the 4+ thing, sentence, or after your concluding sentence, you can have another sentence that nods to your next paragraph. So, for example, now I guess we can call it sort of a transition. Now, you don't have to do this, but if you can, it's pretty good. So you can actually start the transition in the concluding sentence of that paragraph by saying something like, Macbeth's ambition is strong, but there's another character whose ambition is even stronger, and then start in with your next paragraph about Lady Macbeth or whatever, right? So you can actually start your transition in the previous paragraph before starting your, as a way of sort of smoothing more fluid with the transition between your paragraphs. Now you don't have to do that, and it's okay if you don't, but if you can, it's kind of the icing on the cake. But so you make your body paragraphs with a transition. That's important because people sometimes leave it off the first body paragraph, right? So you got to make sure you have that transition, that word also, another, in addition, just something that nods to the previous paragraph, right? So I'm not going to. So we have 3 body paragraphs, right? So it looks like this. Have you ever seen that before?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a graphic representation, right? So you got your topic sentence with your thesis here, transitions, your body paragraphs, and then the bottom paragraph, the final one. Again, it mirrors your introduction in that it starts with your point. So here's your restate your thesis. So I'm going to talk about the concluding paragraph. Right. So the concluding paragraph.
Can't see right now.
Okay, sorry. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Restate your thesis. Looking back. List 3 arguments. Okay. So again, restate your thesis looking back. So you're going to reword the thesis such that as if you've just proven it, right? And then and list your 3 arguments. So it's a mirror of your thesis statement, and then it restates the 3 things you just said, right? It restates your thesis in retrospect. Okay, that's important. Okay, then you're going to recap each body paragraph. Right, so you have to sort of in brief, in a couple of sentences, retell each paragraph. Again, don't shirk here. Don't just list them. You've listed them here. Discuss them. Okay, and then end off with this. This is where you add some insight of your own. Right. So once you recap the essay, then you add. Okay, so and when you're trying to figure out what to write here, you want to figure out, okay, well, what are we supposed to have learned from the example of the story? Right? So, for example, and so we can see so we can see from Macbeth that being ambitious can be destructive, or something to that effect. And then, how can we carry on with that information, right? So, talk about, okay, so what we've learned from Macbeth's example, but then also how can we apply it broadly, right? So we've learned that ambition is destructive. Going forward, we should, as people, think about how our ambitions affect other people or something to that effect. So what have we learned about ourselves, and what have we learned that can be applied to society in general that we can add to at the end there? Okay. So that's the essay structure in a nutshell, right? Just make sure that you do each thing as you go, and keep the checklist, keep the rubric beside you as a checklist, right? And make sure you've done everything. Right? So everything that's on that rubric, if you haven't done it, it slides right over the right? It's level 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if you haven't done it at all, you get no marks. And that drags your mark right down. So make sure you've done everything and you'll be okay. Right? There's a few things to avoid. These things are also written on that essay writing tip sheet, but I want to talk about them a little bit. So make sure, just talking about the essay in general, make sure it's fluid, make sure your transitions are smooth. Right? Make sure that your analysis is thorough. Okay. So this essay, my guess is it probably should wind up being if you've done your job properly, this thing should be probably 5 pages minimum, probably closer to 6. Right? So you're looking at 3/4 of a page, 2/3, 3/4 of a page for your introduction conclusion, at least a full page for each body paragraph. And I'm talking double spaced, but you get the idea. Okay. So a couple of things you want to avoid. You want to avoid contractions, right? So say do not instead of don't. Okay.
We can't see that.
Remember, if you're doing that, make sure if you say cannot is always one word. Okay.
Can't see
So
that.
don't use contractions. Don't use slang.
Can you lift up the camera, please? Thank you.
I think I just did that, did I? Okay. So don't use contractions. So use the full words. Do not, cannot. Don't use slang. Don't refer to yourself. Okay, so don't except maybe at the very end when you're adding that bit of insight, then you can. Okay, so I'll discuss the questions in the chat for a bit. Basically, what happens for now, anyway, is your mark. If the work you submit, okay, if the work you submit is better than the mark you already have, then you get that mark, right? So if let's say your mark is 75, and the essay you get an 85 on the essay, then your mark goes up. Okay. If you hand in your essay and your mark is 75, but the essay is only a 65, right? Your mark will stay to 75 until we get back, right? Now the thing is too is I'm also going to give you, because we're not doing 2 essays. Normally we do an essay on Macbeth, an essay on Fahrenheit, or an essay on your novel study novel, right? Then we're going to do 1 essay. You're going to hand it in to me. I'm going to make comments on it, and then you're going to resubmit it. You're going to have a chance to go through it again, fix it, and resubmit it. So hopefully, if you're doing your job, then your mark should go up, right? But for now, it won't go down. Okay. So don't use slang. Don't use I. I'm going to go down. There's a couple other things you don't want to do. Don't refer to the essay. Okay, so don't say, in this essay, I will prove. Just say, it is clear to the audience that, or it seems that this is true. But you don't say, I'm in this essay, I will prove. And don't refer to the quotations as a, right? So in your analysis, okay, do not to quotations. As quotations. Okay? Don't refer to quotations as a quotation. Say, when Macbeth says this, he is feeling, right? Don't act as if you're talking about a play. Act as if you're talking about real people doing real stuff. Okay? So don't refer to quotation as a quotation. Just say, in Macbeth's speech, he seems to be thinking, or Macbeth thinks, or Macbeth does this thing or that other thing, right? Okay, so Linda says, is there a specific font or font size? Yes. Ideal, I would prefer a Times New Roman 12-point font. Okay. Right. If I always assume if you have a bigger font than that, you're just padding your essay. A smaller font, it's hard to read. So 12 points good. Times New Roman's an easy one to read, right? And it's it's the one of serious essay writing, I guess. Okay, so those are the major things, right? The only other there's a couple of other little things, I guess. When you are there's an MLA style guide on the Google Classroom. Right, so on the Google Classroom, there's an MLA style guide, so that'll tell you how to set up your pages and how to make your references. Just make sure that after your quotations for Shakespeare, you use number period, scene number period, and then line numbers, right? So Act 2, dot 3, so Act 2, Scene 3, lines 25 and 26, right? So that, just make sure you do that. If you have a quotation that's really long, so if it's going to take up more than 3 lines of your essay, then you indent the whole thing. Okay, so you indent the whole quotation all the way down. Okay, it's usually like say 40 words around that. Okay, so you indent the whole thing. And my understanding is when you indent the whole thing, you don't need quotation marks. That's my understanding. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions? Let me see if I'm not very good with this stuff, but I'm gonna see if I can scroll up and down the. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll call up the topics on my other computer and see what other questions you might have. Okay. Just give me a sec. We only have about 15 minutes left, so hold on. Okay. All right. So here we go. So first one is Macbeth is an essentially noble man whose only fault is vaulting ambition leads to his catastrophe. Okay, so that's relatively simple. So the body paragraphs essentially would be you would prove that you have to prove that he was a good man to begin with, right? Second of all, you want to prove that his ambition is quite powerful, and then your third body paragraph, you would prove that in fact it leads to it's the reason that he ends up dying, right? So the second one is Macbeth does not really change his essentially wicked nature throughout the play. The only real change is from fawning hypocrite to bold tyrant. Okay, so that one. So one of them, you're proving that his morality changes over the course of the play, right? So one of them, there's the 3 different murders, and each murder represents or shows us differences in his character that have developed over the course of the play, right? So the murder of Duncan, there's certain aspects of that. The murder of Banquo, there's certain aspects to that, and then the murder of Macduff's family. These are all things that show a real decline in his morality. You could also prove in the other topic, you can also prove that in fact Macbeth doesn't really change, right? That the idea of murdering, that being a murderer and being sort of an essentially bad person, you can prove that he actually never really changes other than the way he reveals himself, right? So he's not a good person. He's talked about murdering Duncan earlier on in the play. He and his wife have obviously even talked about murdering Duncan before the play even started. They've had a conversation about that exact thing. And then then you can prove that in fact he's never really changed. The only difference is in fact it becomes his lack of morality is revealed through the play rather than right. He goes from being a liar to the king's face to being actively evil, right? So you're proving that he isn't really changed his nature through the play. You can prove that too. So you can prove that he changes. You can prove that he doesn't. Right, that's up to you. Right. Okay, so the final one is there's no art to find the mind's construction in the play. Explain how Duncan's observation about people in this quotation applies to three characters in the play Macbeth. All right, so you can use that one. You can you want to talk about essentially the idea that things are not quite what they seem, and there's all kinds of evidence of people being I would say duplicitous, but being appearing one way, but actually being another way, right? And the only one who's not fooled in the play really is Malcolm, right? Who actually who puts Macbeth to the test. Or sorry, puts Macduff to the test, to a very serious test, before he trusts him, right? So Duncan, of course, is betrayed numerous times. Macbeth himself, allows himself to be betrayed by certain things, by things not being as they seem. Now, the witches aren't what they seem to him, right? There's all kinds of things that aren't what they seem, right? Macbeth. You can use three examples of Macbeth being duplicitous, Lady Macbeth, or of people who prove it by being the opposite, by not being like that. But anyway, the idea is essentially that one of the major themes in the play is the idea that very little of what you see is what is as it really appears. Does every transition need to be a phrase? Yes, it does. So it might just be as simple as saying, Macbeth also, and then going into your topic sentence, right? Or you can have a separate phrase. There's another character who is also betrays his leader. It is Macbeth, right? So you can have a transitional phrase, but it certainly can't be just a single word at the beginning of your paragraph. Okay, the transitions now, Ellie, the transitions in each body paragraph. So the transitions between the paragraphs. So if you're going from one paragraph to another, those should be phrases. If the transition is just between two different ideas in the same paragraph, you can use transition words, like right. In addition, finally, that sort of thing. So you use that transition word. But transitional phrases between paragraphs, a transition word between ideas in the same paragraph. Okay, are we good? Any more questions?
What about citation? Do we citate the author Shakespeare or do we cite the book's editors?
Okay. So when you do the citation, okay, so in the body of the play, because you're not doing any other works, all you need is the act, scene, and line number. You don't need Shakespeare's name or anything, right? You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to the works cited page, you're gonna have the author will be Shakespeare. Okay. So let's see, Shakespeare, William, and then the year that it was the year that the play was written, which I think was like probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1606, something like that. And then edited by, and then the name of the editors. Okay, and you can just put edited et al. So I'm going to show you on the board here.
Can't see.
So you put I put my chalk down. Okay, so it'd be
Am I the only
okay.
person
Just give me a
who
second.
can't see?
No,
Don't worry.
the video isn't even showing up.
It's frozen.
Okay. No, it's not even showing up. Oh, bloody hell. Okay, hold on. A sec. Try again. Come on.
Oh, there we go.
You back? Am I
We can
back?
see you. Yep.
Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so edit by Don Kelly et al. So it says if you could type out what we need to put for the reference, that'd be very helpful. Okay, so I will do that. What I'll do then is I'll type that out and just add it to Google Classroom. Okay. So
Perfect.
I'll type out the actual reference, the actual works cited reference. Okay. Everything else. As I said, there's an MLA format booklet in the Google Classroom too. If you have any other questions about that. Okay, I recorded yesterday for John. I forgot to hit the record button after I was finished recording, so it didn't save it. But I don't think there's anything earth-shattering in that we need to save. This one I will definitely. I said again, if I can't figure out where to store it or where it's saved, I'll make it a whole other video and put it on YouTube for essay writing, just so you can go back and refer to it. Okay, so and again, if you have any other questions about Macbeth itself, you can watch those videos. They're there. Or you can feel free to email me anytime. Now, do you want to do this again sometime? Like, are you guys comfortable now writing an essay, or can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Kind
hear
of.
you. It's just glitching a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so like I said, if you have any questions, you can email me. Do you want to do this again before the essays due? Just like a question answer kind of section.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we say? Okay. I would like to go a touch earlier in the morning. Like, can you guys get up? Can you guys get up for 10?
Sure.
Oh, that might be a little too early.
It's actually I'm getting up later every day, it seems. But hope everybody's okay. Everybody's doing well. I hope.
Yep.
That's good. That's good.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good actually. This kind of suits me, to be honest. Other than we had it for my granddaughter's birthday, we had to do a drive-by birthday for her. So we all had there's like a dozen cars or so. We all had signs and balloons and stuff. We had to sing "Happy Birthday" out in the middle of the street. So we had to have our Easter dinner over the Facebook Messenger for our dinner. Did you guys do that?
Didn't have Easter dinner.
We just we did something like that. We live streamed.
Yes. Yeah, it sucked. Like it was chaotic because people didn't know when to talk and when not to talk, and people get cut off. They were trying to talk, and it was pretty. Yeah, I have no idea if I said again. There's no indication of whether we're going to be back or not. But you all have your updated marks, I assume, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's craziness. Okay, so what I'll do then is at 10 o'clock on Friday. So I'll send you another invitation at 10 o'clock on Friday. We'll do this one more time, and just as a again as a question answer session for the essay. If you have any things you want to clear up, I'm running out of time, and I want to make sure that this thing recorded. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you Friday morning. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. All right. Clock off for now. Stop recording.